Hello, this is JJ Humphrey, and we're on Elephant in the Room. We got several guests. Of course, we've always got Bobby, and we got two special guests with us today. We have Julie and Jason, and they are both former employees of the Department of Corrections. Just want to stop for just a second, tell everybody we've kind of changed up a little bit what we were doing, what we are planning on doing. And so everyone knows that I'm very involved in the prisons and the Department of Corrections. And what happened this week was the group that represents our Association for Correctional Professionals, Oklahoma Correctional Professionals, that group, the president, ended up and closed our Facebook Live, which is very, very important. And so I've asked these guys to come on with us and to make sure that we continue to get that word out there. So until we get that up, we will probably be doing prison information, correctional information for the next week or two. And I just want to say a big shout out to one of the employees who got on the Oklahoma Correctional Professional Facebook and wrote an article, and he actually said, and I'm not going to name that officer's name, I think he'll recognize it, but that officer got out and said that the president of OCP had allowed all of this to be hijacked. He was being used by the director, and he explained it very, very well, how that person, which is Scott Everson, has allowed himself to be taken over, and he's allowed the director to take over the OCP and the OCP Live. And again, we've got to fight that. We've got to get the word out there, and we've got to get that back. So with that, we're going to jump into one of the biggest things that we see going on right now is, or I'm getting really, really involved in several extortion cases. And right. So we've got some really big things. And Jason, you could probably talk to this of how that some of your gang members are extorting the family members, holding them hostage, getting thousands of dollars from them to say, if you don't pay us, we're going to end up raping or stabbing or assaulting your loved one. So how bad a problem do you think that is in the penitentiary, Jason?
Oh, it's really bad. As a matter of fact, before I retired, I was dealing with that issue. There's one mama, and I had talked to her actually before I retired. Her name's Amber, and I think she was at the state capitol last week. But as you know, because of the shortage of officers, fentanyl is such a problem in the prisons. And in this particular case, and there's a lot of other cases like it, but in this particular case, her son, he's an addict, and he's had a problem with fentanyl. And because we're so short-staffed, and all the gang members, they're even when he's trying to do right, the gangs, they're putting the stuff, they're leaving it on his bed for him to take. And I had got a call from Amber while I was there, and they're extorting her weekly. I had locked that inmate, the one that was extorting her at that particular time, I locked him up, and we had put her son, we had moved him to a safe cell and moved him units to try to help him out. Well, after I left, they ended up letting that inmate back out on the yard. He beat up her son really, really bad again. So there's several issues with extortion. As a matter of fact, I heard from her that they were trying to get like they were getting $2,000 to $3,000 a month out of her and telling her they were going to kill her son.
She told me.
So it's a major problem, and it all has to do with the fact that there's not enough staff to monitor the behavior of these inmates, and the gangs are running the prisons.
Hey, JJ.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of this before. Have you heard of it before? Has it been a problem before? Have you ever heard of it before?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's always been in the prison, but you'd have one or two cases, and we would turn it over to OIG, and they would work it. Now we're hearing it like it sounds like it's going on massively.
It's broader than what it was a year ago.
Huge. Yeah, it's huge. And the thing about it is, Amber had told me that she's getting extorted about $3,000 a month. And then
Yes.
while we were sitting there talking, she had received a call that guy had just contacted her to say, I'm beating your son up right then. And so, here she's paying 3,000 and it's still happening. That night I got a call from a person down in the Duncan area that her son was being raped and that she had already paid out close to 20,000. She said she sold her car. I've got another lady in Norman area, 20,000. We got all the stuff together to prove it, turned it over to OIG, and OIG told them that JJ Humphrey was troublemakers. And so what I did was went back out, told her, I said, hey, the real extortion is happening at your home. You are the one being extorted. So we went down to the sheriff's office and they are working that case. But it's pretty sad that when you turn it over to the Department of Corrections with massive proof I helped her put together, she already had it all, but we ended up and turned it in, and she advised me that she was told that I was just a troublemaker and they weren't going to work it. And so again, that's what we're seeing from DOC. We see all of these extortion cases, and I figure we're just tipping the iceberg because I figure this is going on massively. And again,
But basically, this would be because of the shortage of staff. It's increasing. Is that true? Where you feel, Jason?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the issue. All these issues, and I'm not saying you're not going to have a little of it because you are. That is the one thing.
Sure.
When the director says, it's prison and it's going to be that way, he is absolutely right on that point. There's going to be some of those cases, but the massive amount of cases and constantly, and it getting worse and worse, and that's all due to the lack of staff coverage.
But Jason, when we have full staff and when we have prisons run, they do happen, but then we can address them. We can actually go after them. OIG can actually work these. But when you're having, basically 20 or 30 fentanyl deaths a month, and their OIG's working that. When somebody's getting stabbed every day, OIG's working that. And again, staff's doing all they can. At the end of the day, all these extortion cases get kicked down the road and don't get worked, and that's what we're seeing. And again, one of the things I want to follow up on is I just got some information on some rates. I want to see have those rates even been turned in, and are the PRIAs be actively working and all of that thing. So again, one of the things that we've got to do is we've got to have a discussion on just how bad things are getting at the prison. And I hope I'm going to have some of the families in this week, like Julie and Jason came last week. Guys, I think y'all did a awesome job at that hearing. What did y'all think about the hearing?
It was nerve-wracking for sure.
Oh, no. You did an awesome job. Y'all didn't act like y'all were too stressed out. And just so our listeners know, Julie and Jason and Luke Pettigrew came to the Capitol. We had a corrections committee hearing, and they got to speak before that. And I will tell y'all knocked it out of the park. I think we just needed about 2 more hours so we could discuss all.
JJ, do we need to introduce them again to your listeners? Maybe they got different listeners. They might not know exactly what we're talking about.
I did it, Bob. I introduced him when he started, but Julie Thompson, who is a former employee of the Department of Corrections, she was top supervisor over food services. She is very highly qualified, dietitian, requires a lot of education. She was in that position, quit. And Julie, if you want to kind of go ahead with telling people why you quit.
You're right. I was the administrator of food service operations for the entire state for a Department of Corrections. I left after having to perform miracles when they opened up the Great Plains Correctional Center in Hinton, Oklahoma. After watching how they treated staff members, myself included in my team, I just could no longer stand by. Also for me, it was also an issue of just the repeated threats, I guess you could say, the culture, that fear culture that was going on. So that was part of the reason I left.
But if I'm not mistaken, you were notified 2 weeks before it was to open up because they forgot all about the kitchen. And then they asked you
Yes,
to
sir.
go in there and get it ready within 2 weeks. You guys worked about 70 hours a week to get it up. But it was not your fault. It was their fault for not planning correctly.
Absolutely. They forgot. And anybody who's down there worked Great Plains or had to come fill in will tell you that there was very little planning that was involved. There was a lot of issues from electrical to trash services where we have maggots and mice outside because of the trash just stacking up. So many issues.
How was the sanitation out of there? Just out of curiosity, how was the sanitation?
Staff members, we did the best that we could, but that's just it. When you have staff piling up and you have trash bags everywhere, I mean, I had photos on my state phone of just trash overheaping the garbage, maggots everywhere. Those were all real issues. But that happens when you don't plan.
And Jason's with us. He used to be former chief. He has been officer of the year a couple of times. He's got medals of valor. He was employee of the year. And so he was chief when he left. And Jason, if you want to give a little bit about, why you left and what you're doing now.
Well, I had this big plan, and my plan was, like I said, I wanted to do 25 years in the department. I had that planned out for the last at least 7 or 8 years. I wanted to retire as a deputy warden. And as chief of security, especially when I went to Connors, I saw the direction of how DOC was going. I saw how dangerous it was getting. I saw the fact that the prisons were so short-handed. I saw the rates go up. I saw the extortion. I saw every bit of that. And I was to Jim Ferris and all them, I was sending those messages to them. Tommy Sharp, and I was telling them we're in bad shape. We need some help. We need some officers. I was even telling them where they could send us officers like Jimmy Hamilton and Jess Dunn. And so I saw every bit of this coming, and I had been seeing it. And I had been listening to you guys, for the last couple of years, and especially the last year and a half, talking about all the issues. And I was listening to how and seeing, I saw firsthand how you guys were getting ignored. And I saw how the director was making a mockery out of you two. And so I was at a point, and I saw wardens getting fired, and deputies getting fired and chiefs getting fired. So I was at a point where I knew I could retire. And so I knew the best thing that I could do to really help the department was to go ahead and retire. And because you guys didn't look me up, I looked you guys up, and I reached out to you all. Y'all didn't reach out. Y'all didn't recruit me. That was my plan. I had told several people when I left that I was going to be a voice and I was going to go try to help the Department of Corrections. So I saw the direction it was going. And so that's when I decided I retired January 1st. And I decided I was going to help you guys all I could because, and another thing I want to add, we're talking about all this violence and rapes going on and extortion. The problem is when you have people in charge up top that have no experience and do not know what they're doing, they do not have a clue of how to fix the issues because they've never been in the prison setting. They don't know how to control inmates. You learn that through time. You learn that through experience. All these officers and everybody watching this will tell you the same thing. You cannot plug people into the Department of Corrections. You cannot plug people in, just insert people and expect them to be successful at those positions. You have to have time. You have to earn that respect from inmates. Inmates have to know that you've been there, that you know what you're talking about. And so they can't fix these issues because they have no idea. That director or Ferris or Sparks, they can't walk onto a facility and pull everybody up and say, you know what, guys, this is going to be how it's going to be, or this is going to be the consequence. They have not earned that right to have that respect. And that's a lot of the problems. You are going to see the problems keep getting worse because they do not have the respect or the knowledge to fix these issues.
Well, one of the ways you see that, Jason, and of course, everybody can comment on this, but in the last 2 weeks, we had a budget hearing in which the director, if I'm not mistaken, come in and said that the prison population had grown up to about 24,000, almost 25. It's 24 something, right under 25, if I remember correctly. And then they came out and said that it was at 21, I think. And then they come out and said it's at 18 or 17. I forget what the number was. I've got to get all this verified, and I'm not going to go forward until I can actually prove, well, here's where you quoted. Now, my budget deal's not hard because they're on film on that one, so I can go get that, pull that little brief point and copy it. I've got to go find where they did 21 and 18. But again, in a 2-week period for your top people to give such, ranging numbers, ranging anywhere from 7,000 or 8,000 difference.
I was listening to those news briefs that they were giving off, and you're right, JJ, where they're talking their numbers somehow magically went to 17,000.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like
And 1,000 had 1,000 officers too.
Yeah. Well, it's saying that it's 1 to 15, and when we presented, Jason, you did an awesome job the other day in that hearing, showing people how simple math. All you got to do is simple math and take the numbers that they're given and divide it into it, and it simply just won't work. I mean, you would have to have, they're like 56, 60 officers, take 83 to run a shift, what they're saying. And again, that means you would have to have 166 officers, and they're just lying. And so again, whether it's, if we have 25, and that's why those numbers are so important. If we have 25, then how many officers do we actually have? Because if there's 7,000 ranging from inmates, what are they ranging on officers? And again, we just can't believe any of the numbers. That's my next go, is to go after extortion. And my next go is to go after their numbers, to publicly show, here's what you said in public. Here's what you said in public. Here's what you said in public. This was to a hearing. This is to the media. You ought to, these are times you ought to be getting it right. And one of the big problems, you said it a while ago, Jason, was that you got people who don't know. So you've got Harp there who doesn't know. You've got his two, mainly the ones that do the, public announcements and stuff, their media stuff. And again, they've never spent one day in the penitentiary. They don't know. So when they get these numbers, they just don't know how to go, is that right? Let me check it. So they can't check it. So they come out and give any number they're told. They just say that's the number, and they've got no way to validate that. And they're not smart enough to go, hey, that number don't, I don't mean not smart enough. They don't have enough experience. I'm not trying to insult their intelligence. They are intelligent people. They're good. I feel like they're probably pretty decent people, but again, they're just in a position where they don't know anything that they're talking about.
Well, and that's an issue with why the officers, I'm telling you, I talked to a lot of officers, and they're upset. They have no respect for the director, and it's because he gives these little weekly, which he hasn't been doing in a couple of weeks. I think his next one's scheduled for like the 28th. But he gives these little briefs, and he's lying to these, telling them, they're 85%, they're 92%, they're 15 to 1, they're 14 to 1. And these officers know that it's BS also. So he has lost complete respect. They have lost complete respect for him. And until they, become transparent and actually start giving real numbers or talking about real issues, which I don't even think their brain comprehends to even do that. But, that's why they want to shut down OCP, because they're trying to be, you guys are trying to be transparent and just get to the root of the problems, and they don't even recognize the problems to start with. That part of it just blows my mind.
Well, it blows my mind that your president of OCP could even think about shutting that down when we were gaining massively on people watching. So the number of people watching was increasing since you guys have come on. I would say probably doubled. I don't know, Bob, you'd know that. Would you say I'd be right?
Right.
So that it's doubled. The OCP membership was increasing. So why would you want to take that down? Everything that we're saying, I mean, we've got y'all two to be more credibility. Y'all are bringing the credibility to the program, to what we're saying, adding to what we're saying. And again, what has this OCP president done? I mean, he goes over there and has meetings with Harp. Does he come back and report that to the membership? Hey, this is what we're working on. What can he hang his hat on? Hey, he's done for the membership. What is he hanging his hat on? I mean, I don't have a clue, because I've been pretty active with you guys for the last 3-4 years, and I've seen Scott Everson do absolutely nothing except violate policy. He violates the policy. He's not even, you only have president is only supposed to be like a 2-year post. This guy's way over it. He won't call hearings, committee meetings. He won't announce them. So he's violating all kinds of policy right there by not announcing, not having a proper election. He's not a proper president. He's hijacked this thing, and he's not smart enough to know Harp's playing him like a harp. Harp is playing him, and he's playing everybody to get this shut down.
That was my question that I was going to ask. I was always under the impression OCP was for our employees, for the staff members.
Right.
So who is OCP really for if it's really just benefiting DOC? That's how it appears to me on the outside.
Well, it does appear that way, because right now it's being that way. And the board should be about the membership. It should be hearing from the membership to say, what do y'all want to do? They get their direction from the membership. They represent the membership. But you got a president that don't want to even talk to members, don't want to have nothing. If you put something out on the Facebook post and he disagrees with you, he pulls you down, and then he talks about professional. And I know I have a tendency to get a little unprofessional. I think they're mad at me only because I say he's a punk for the director. I know he gets a little mad when I say it, and the reason he gets mad is because it's true, So I am a little unprofessional, a little uncouth, I know. But at the end of the day, I challenge anybody to say, am I telling the truth or am I not telling the truth? Because I'll be speaking a lot of truth, and there's a lot of truth in the statement that I'm saying. So we've got to find a way to get that back. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is just the amount of violence and the amount of the rapes, assaults, all of that. Do y'all think, are y'all seeing it? I don't know if every one of y'all's hearing it, but man, I can't keep up. I got a lady the other day. I think one person had gotten hung. One person had cut their wrist. I can't even keep up. I was telling her, I can't keep up with the number of calls I'm getting on how many people are assaulted. I
think last week we had 2 deaths.
Right.
There was another one at Hinton that was killed last week.
Okay, we got Hinton and we got OSP. Who else? Anywhere else? Just those 2?
I don't know. No, I don't know where.
I thought there was 3, but I don't know.
I've got a person that I was told cut their wrists and committed suicide. And again, I don't know what facility that was at.
Hey, Bobby, I had one question for you before we continue on. What would be the recourse for, how could we get a new board and a new president of OCP? What do your members, what do we need to do?
Well, the policy is that you hold a state meeting. I think it's once a year, maybe twice, but I believe it's once. But you have your board meetings, several of those each year, 4. And what you'd have to do is have a statewide meeting, and then the members have to come to that meeting, and then they could vote for whoever was running to be president. And they at that time too, they would vote other board members in.
Could we schedule a meeting? Could you?
My understanding is the president is one who calls the meeting. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong. You'd have to ask Frisbee. But my understanding is the president must call a meeting for a statewide meeting. And today, go ahead.
Bob, let me ask you something. If the guy is a couple of years over date of when he's supposed to be the president, I mean, should he even be recognized as a president? Because he's already out of date.
Well, I don't know the question on that one. That'd be a legal question, but it's actually, I think, 1 year, not 2. But it's, I don't know. It's beyond me. I just do what I'm told.
What about a
Uh,
petition, Bob? What
I
about if all the OCP members signed a petition?
I've had a number of calls about that, and I'm out of that. I mean, that's not my call. I'm not getting involved in it, and that's out. But I've had a number of calls asking me about that.
Well,
I
that's
think if
something
you
I
had
would spearhead is getting with a bunch of the guys from OCP to start a petition.
I think if you had a petition, Jason, that it would force them to have a meeting, because if your membership's calling for a meeting, it would force them. And then if you had to go to court on something, I'm working right now on getting several members to sue them and just say you've hijacked this thing, and you're not even operating. You're not calling meetings. You're not following policy. You're not even the valid president. You're trying to fire a director who's got you the first $2 raise that you ever got, who got 400 people who didn't get that raise in on that raise, who got probation pro a raise through his actions, who found $43 million in there and got that raise, who has gotten uniforms by filing a bill, who's gotten captain's pay by filing the bill. And we're just, that's off the top of my head of stuff. There has been nobody even close, hands down, walk away, get the stuff done that Bobby Cleveland has done here. And again, he's mad. Scott's mad because the director's mad. And here's what's funny. The director personally come to me and said they would not work with Bobby Cleveland. And again, pretty much the way I felt, and again, I'm not going to put words in their mouth. I'm just telling you the way I felt was, if I would kick OCP and Bobby Cleveland to the curb, then I could work with them. If I didn't, I wouldn't. I didn't do that because, again, I'm for the employees of the Department of Corrections. That's who I'm working for. I may be radical, I may be unprofessional, but I'm going to be radical and unprofessional for the employees, okay? And so I didn't. Well, now we're in hot water with them, but here's what's funny. Harp doesn't have any use for OCP, but guess what he does? He goes around and gets Scott Everson to start coming to meetings. Well, why would you not have any use for OCP, but all of a sudden you're meeting with OCP? And I can tell you why, because he can run. He runs Scott like a sled dog. Scott does anything that he wants him to do. And what Director Harp appears to me, what I think, looking at the whole thing, he's using Scott to bust up OCP, because OCP is his nightmare. OCP has been the director's nightmare because we call him out on all the stuff that he's done.
Well, to be
Well,
clear,
it sounds like there needs to be some ex-employees, because that's the thing. He monopolizes it when everybody's a current employee because they work for him anyway.
I agree, Jason. I agree, because if you're an employee, it's going to be hard to walk in there and stand up to him. Somebody like you, and that's another change needs to be in there. Somebody like you would be awesome. Dooley would be awesome, because guess what? You know corrections inside out. Dooley knows corrections inside out. Guess what? You could go in there and speak truth and not be afraid of being fired, not be afraid, and represent the membership. And that's what, at the end of the day, it's not about J.J. Humphrey. It's not about Cleveland. It's not about Jason. It's not about Julie. It's about the employees. Are we representing the employees, the safety, security of our employees and the inmates? And that's what it should be about.
well, to be clear, the very first day, not the very first day he took over, but within a few days after he took over, we had a meeting in his office. And before we even had a conversation, he told me that he didn't have any use for OCP, that he had no use for me. I don't dislike you, nothing personal, but I don't like unions, and I'm not going to have to do with you. So you don't need to call me. I'm not dealing with you. So
I have a
don't know
question
how
for
much
you, Bobby.
plainer he could be.
Right. Go ahead, Julie.
Hey, Bobby, here's my question for you. As the director, were you notified of any time that the president had meetings
No,
with Director Harp?
no,
Were you notified of any topics that were covered or anything like that?
no. In
So you
fact, there's a deal on Facebook. I noticed that one of the members Well, one of the members told me he's going to have a meeting with the director, and then Scott chimed in and said, "No, that was supposed to be a secret meeting. Bobby wasn't supposed to know."
Wow.
But I kind of been under a little stress here lately, I thought. But I went to the doctor Friday, and lo and behold, my blood pressure is down. Now I think I'm going to die. It's getting so low. I was at 113 over 72. And
Wow.
The guy said, "That's a great blood pressure for a teenager." That's what my blood pressure was. So I guess I'm not under the stress I thought I was.
Well, here's where I'm at. I used to be a vice president in Fraternal Order of Police, and we represented our organization just like OCP does. We were an association, identical, and we met with the director quite frequently. We met with the head of Probation Pro quite frequently. But guess what? We would always come back and give a report. We had annual meetings. We had a monthly meeting every month, same spot, same week, third Thursday or something like that of the week. Everybody knew exactly when we were going to have it. You could show up public meeting. We would give a report. We would always have a detailed report on what come out of those meetings and how how the meeting went, what was the attitude of the meeting. And some of them were very positive and some of them weren't so positive. In fact, some of them went kind of south, a little bit. But at the end of the day, we were there on behalf of the membership, and we come back and gave a report to the membership because that's who you answer to. You represent them, not yourself.
Right. Well, when he didn't want to meet at all with, Bobby to start with, that just lets you know they don't want to be transparent right there.
Well, that's the way I felt, Jason. The very same way I felt.
Roster of the overtime report without having, and then when they give you answers on that, it's always different. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. They tell so many lies. It's easy to disprove if we could just get the right paperwork and stuff.
But he just left me basically with what am I going to do? I just have to go public with what he's planning on doing, rather than going there and talking to him, trying to explain stuff and work it together. It wouldn't work. In fact, I had a call from one of his top people there who said that you or JJ cannot call here anymore. We're not going to answer the phone. We're not going to talk to you. We're not going to text you. You are not allowed in any prison. That was from one of the top people there. He said he got it from the director.
Well, and not only that.
Do you remember that, JJ, when I told you about that?
It seems to, Bob. They don't respond to me. They'll answer my emails, but they ain't got no use for me. But here's the deal, Jason. You hit on it a while ago. It's if he didn't have any use for OCP and he ain't got any use for Bob, and that's the union, and we're not dealing with you, then why are you turning around and meeting with these people on the board secretly and quietly? And what are you doing? And what's this board doing secretly and quietly meeting? And anything that's secret and quiet and not transparent is generally some sketchy crap. You know what I'm saying? And so, again, Everson's got a lot to answer for. What's all these secret meetings, and why when OCP was doing awesome with the videos and OCP Live, would you take it down? That's a pretty obvious, you're trying to harm OCP. You're not trying to help OCP. And then when he talks about professional, just look at yourself, Everson. Go look in the mirror. You ain't no professional, son. You are ashamed. You're shameful. Your acts are shameful. You're disgraceful. I'm on Elephant in the Room, so I can speak my mind. You are terrible, terrible. And you are a huge thorn, and you're why the department can continue. And when you see those rapes, when you see those assaults, when you see all of the things, the people get murdered, guess what? That's on your hands because you're not calling it out. You've got one of the best positions to call it out, and you are sitting in there letting the director run you like a sled dog. Julie, you were going to say something?
I'm just heartbroken for the OCP members, the individuals who pay monthly because they believe that Bobby and they believe that you, JJ, are behind them, fighting for them. And then for here, this is how they're going to be treated, that the voice of OCP, the voice of those employees is just going to be kicked off. And honestly, Bobby, I know part of the backstory, you weren't even really told ahead of time that they had removed you from staff. You had to call and talk to them yourself and seek out those answers. They didn't tell you immediately.
Nothing. They hadn't spoke to me in 6 months.
See, I just find that disgraceful. I find that so disgraceful that you're trying to fight for these people, trying to be their voice, and here we are, just.
But Julie, I want to say
disgraceful.
this: the voice of OCP is the membership, and if we get this petition, or we get them to show up for a meeting and elect real people who can help them do what we say, get some of those retired people and let them join. Let them maybe hold positions where they can go in. And again, that's the voice. And what has to happen is the voice of the membership needs to stand up. This is when you as a member need to come forward. You need to get involved and you need to be heard. And we need to get Scott out. And we need to get a new board in that has your back, that has your intentions. And again, that will answer, hey, if I say something wrong and they want to call me out on it, I'm all right with that. I know I open my mouth and say stupid stuff all the time. I'm all right with that. If they want to say, hey, this is unprofessional as a board, I'm okay with that as long as they're doing it at membership control, not 2 or 3 up there having secret meetings, calling on the phone to each other, not even following policy, and then slipping secretly at night and going to meet Harp and then let Harp run OCP to the ground. That's what they're doing. I mean, they're just letting him play them. And again, they're sitting around laughing how stupid they are. I can tell you right now, I know for a fact they're sitting around laughing, thinking how stupid they are.
Julie, could you imagine if the OCP members and DOC did not have the voices of those two, JJ and Bobby? Could you imagine that's the only voice they had? Could you? I couldn't imagine it. It would be a complete dictatorship if he didn't have you two. And I'm I respect you guys so much. You guys are the only voice these guys have had for some time now. So I really do. You guys don't take enough credit for yourselves because, yeah, I can't even imagine the shape DOC would be in if it wasn't for you two.
Well, Jason, you mentioned the monthly meetings that Director Hart puts out, and you and I both know from watching those little podcast town halls, whatever he calls them, the amount of information that are put out on them. We know it's false. We know we're being lied to as employees. And so that's just it for JJ and Bobby to be telling the truth and letting people know that they are not alone, that they are not the crazy ones.
Right.
I'm with you. Like, I just can't imagine if OCP did not exist.
Hey, out of curiosity, let me ask you a question. He said it last I had heard, he told me he would have an open door policy. And he told me, I said, well, we're the voice. He said, I don't like OCP. I don't like it. And we don't need it. I said, well, it's not for you. It's for the employees to have a voice. He said, they don't need a voice. They can come to me anytime. They got an open door policy. They can email me. They can do anything. I'll be transparent. Now, I want to ask you a question. On his little podcast. Look at the podcast, okay? On the podcast, do they delete some questions or they take all the questions on the podcast, or do you even know?
No, they don't take all the questions. In fact, if you submit an anonymous question, they'll tell you they're not even going to respond to it. And also, that's just it too. The questions that are asked, a lot of times they'll turn around a month later and give a written answer for them. But the questions are prettied up and are made to not appear nearly as bad as what they were. I know that for a fact. There's one individual that contacted me and sent me a long list of the questions they've been asking monthly. And then the response that DOC gives later on isn't even close to the question that they asked.
Well, I've heard that. I've heard people who went and talked to him and he got mad at them when they were saying they didn't agree or things were in a disarray, and he would get mad at them, angry. But apparently now he just doesn't meet with anybody.
Well,
I want to fire people also for voicing Mr. Pettigrew. He told him when he said "dress for your day," which was a jeans situation. He wanted them to be able to everybody wear jeans, and he was like, "Well, I don't think that's a good idea." At least that's his rumor that I've heard. when people question him on things, he would, smile, and then he'd turn around and terminate them.
Yep. Go ahead, JJ.
Well, I just want people to know when you're sitting out there and you're thinking, well, but we'll get in trouble if we speak up, if we get involved, we're going to get in trouble. And I want you to know, hey, it's risky. I won't lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie, but I want you to know I'm in hot water all the time at the Capitol. I'm telling you, I'm fighting it all the time, getting threatened. And, I get threatened also personally. I get threatened. I've had people from DOC personally threaten me, and I got a threat this morning, to tell you the truth. And so, guys, we're putting it out here. We're trying to represent you, and we're trying not just you, but the safety of all the inmates, the safety of all the employees, and the well-being of everybody. And that's what we're trying to represent. And again, this thing has gotten, I don't know about you guys, but this thing's gotten plumb rodeo, and it is scary. We're talking about scary times right now in the penitentiaries. And there are 4 penitentiaries I can name you that I would be, 5, tell you the truth, 5 that I can just off the top of my head say, hey, are really, really at risk right now.
Well, to be clear, though, I want our members to understand, be clear, we're still representing you. I'm still working on it. We're still doing our things. We're still winning at the level, at the civil service level. We are still winning there. And we're winning about 90% of the cases simply because DOC doesn't follow its own policy. So, but, don't be afraid to call me if you got an issue. If you're working, 16 straight hours for 3 or 4 days a week, I want to know about it. We can do something about that. There's a law against that. But if you don't tell me, I don't have any way to do it. But I can't do anything about it till they write you up. Till they write you up about it. Or if you're working those 16 hours a day, we can challenge them. But you're going to have to do something. Something's going to be on your part, because I just can't go in there and tell them to stop it. They know they can't. They know they're not supposed to do it. It's wrong.
Hey, Jason, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, these guys, I know for a fact, because they call me, they're working 80, 90 hours a week. I got a call Thursday morning that Connors didn't have a tower. They didn't have surveillance. They didn't have a yard officer for a while. It's every week these guys are working. All you got to do is pull overtime reports, but they're all working at least 5 and 6 to 7. These guys are working 80, 90 hours a week in a lot of cases.
Right.
Wonder what our overtime is if we're got so many people out there. Wonder what the overtime is. Is overtime down or is it overtime up?
Oh, it's way up, and that's easy to prove. But they won't. Shouldn't that be a public record? How much DOC spending? Shouldn't that?
I think it would be. Here's the best picture we'll ever going to get of JJ right now. That's the best thing we'll ever get. Yeah, that should be open. He should be able to get that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think the budget should be public record for all the taxpayers and stuff.
Budget is open. We can get the budget. I think JJ can get the budget, but
because that'll let you know real quick. They're spending more in overtime than they are regular pay for these officers. So again, how are we at 85 or not? And I don't even know what the number is. 85, 92. I don't. Julie, what is the last call number?
It was 85% is what the one was.
85% staff.
But, those numbers change weekly, depending on which newspaper they talk to. It was 15 inmates to every one officer, and now we're 14 inmates to every one officer. So, the number of inmates have changed within the last week, too. So, who knows?
Show the daily rosters, and then if I'm wrong, I'll be quiet about it. Show those daily rosters, Director. Let us see how many officers are in each prison. Be transparent with these numbers, and if I'm wrong, I'll say, you know what, I'm wrong, but I know I'm not wrong, and you're lying.
Hey, can I ask y'all? Did I just hear Bobby Cleveland talking trash about me? Bob,
he would never do that. He would never do that.
Absolutely, we can get these numbers. Here's the problem. I tried to subpoena some records before, and they wouldn't let me subpoena. I have subpoena power, but it has to go through the House. We're going to try that again Monday. That's what I was talking to you about, Jason, about what do we need to subpoena, what records we're trying to subpoena. I'm trying to get those, as well as bring those people in next week. But absolutely, we can get those things, because we're going to have them, because you cannot depend on any answer. We saw that last week when we see 17,000, 21,000. 2 weeks before that is 24, almost 25. Again, if you can't get any closer than that, and nobody calls them on it, nobody calls them. And that's what we got to do, is we got to go, look where you were here. You're telling the public this. Look here, you're telling the public. Look here, you're telling the House of Representative budget people something totally different. Which one of these numbers is actually real? And again, I've got one of our news stations that come out with some numbers too, and I'll have to call them and see how they got those numbers. But again, to do that, and we got into this before, and that's why we found the 43 million for the raise. We spent 3 months, and Bob can testify this, 3 months trying to get them to tell us how many officers was short. They come in with 300. We spent
4 days a week asking for that.
Yeah, and they come in with 3. It turned out that 6 months later, they come in and go, okay, it's really 940. And that's what they turned in, not what I turned in. They turned in 940. And so they went from 300 to 940. Is either one of those true? Can you put faith in any one of them? No, I can't put faith in anything, that because they'll tell you on the spin of a dime. They come into that meeting with the governor's office and speaker's office, said they had 1,700 correctional officer positions. 2 weeks later, they're in a Senate hearing and said we have 2,000. You know, it's a 300 difference. That's a lot of correctional officers, 300 difference, you know.
And here's the thing too, even on those numbers, those 12 to 14 that we have daily at Dick Connors, and that's not even how many, if we're getting technical, aren't around inmates, because if you do have a tower guy, let's say, he has no inmate contact. Your central control has no inmate contact. Your perimeter has no inmate contact. So that's 3 of your 12 or 14, you know, that have. So now you're looking at 11. Well, you know, your SHU, I mean, so that's even, you know.
Right.
So you're honestly, you probably have maybe 8 or 9 officers that actually have inmate contact. And then when you call a response, you know, you have a couple that are going to show up. It's really bad when you don't have, you know, support staff there after 5 o'clock. But
well, Jason, does that include like your lieutenant as well? I mean, because they're
a lot of times now they're so short. See, your lieutenant's supposed to be your yard captain, basically, because your captain runs the shift. Well, your lieutenants are supposed to run the yard, help control the movement. They're supposed to talk with the tower about the controlment of the movement, but they're so short. You'll even have the extra captain or the lieutenant. He'll be on a housing unit or be on perimeter or on a medical transport.
Right.
So you don't have that experienced lieutenant.
Jason,
a lot of times, there was a lot of days that your captain running shift would have to be your yard officer too, and then I would come in and help as the chief, help do the transport, you know, to medical or whatever they needed, because and you should have 3 or 4 yard officers on a medium yard to help control. You know, you need one, because you're running your kitchen all day long. By the time you feed breakfast, it's time to go into lunch.
Right.
So you should have 2 people monitoring that kitchen, because like Julie said, that's where, you know, most of your things happen. But you have nobody to monitor the kitchen. I'm telling you, it's a recipe for disaster.
And how can they
be done immediately? And everybody that works in those prisons, they know this.
How can they sit and say that's what the people in that prison know, that, and that director can sit and say, oh yeah, we're at 92%. And that is just slap in the face right there to the officers, to the employees. And again, I honestly, he doesn't have enough experience to know the numbers they give him are wrong numbers. I think he probably doesn't even know that he's giving false.
He does not know. He does not have enough experience to even know the situation that these guys are in right now. Because if he had that experience, he would not run and manage things the way that he does.
How many other prisons would you say that's in the same boat that Connor's in?
Well, I know Hinton is. Hinton's in the same boat. Allen Gamble's in really bad shape, and Lawton. So there's 4 right there.
Well, now I heard the other day. Now I don't know if it's true.
The others aren't as bad as those 4, but those 4 right there are in really bad shape.
Well, I haven't substantiated it, but I've heard it from a couple of people. That's a lot of action is going on at Stringtown now, and I know they've been very quiet. Have you heard anything, JJ?
Yeah, I've been getting a couple calls from Stringtown. I don't think that they're anywhere close to what we're seeing in them others. But
I don't either. We know that, but if it's changing, that's the thing about it. If it's changing,
Bob, I would say the next. I agree with what Jason said. I'm going to put Allen Gamble maybe the worst right now. I'm going to put probably. I don't know. It'd be a tight second for either Dick Connors or Hinton or Lawton. I mean, they're all pretty much right there together. And then I will tell you what you're not hearing. I'm hearing several things from OSP. So if I was going to put the next one behind those 4 that I'd have concerns, it would be OSP, and then maybe. I don't know. From there, it kind of gets.
Joe Harp's gotten a lot worse than it used to be.
Yeah, it had. They had that one guy back in December.
And you know who they got rid of at Joe Harp? That was Lou Pettigrew. You didn't hardly have any issues out of Joe Harp before he was fired.
Right.
Well, back last year, there was an inmate that was already in prison for murder, and my understanding is he told one of the law officers that if he's getting transferred to Hart, that if they put me in the cell with somebody, I'm going to kill him. Well, they put somebody in the cell with him, and he kills the guy. He knifed him 85 times and left his knife in the guy's eye. And now he's going to trial for murder again. But now I don't know if the message didn't get to the prison, not to put somebody in there with him, but they claim that there wasn't information at the prison that they were not supposed to put anybody in there with him.
Even with Little Bonita, I had a lieutenant over there tell me that last month, January, they had 17 SIRs or major incidents that they had,
At Bonita?
17 at Bonita.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the thing I heard last week, Bobby, maybe it was you telling me that, or I think maybe the same person told you and me, that there was a problem at Howard McLeod. They'd had a big fight on the yard, and then I'd got calls from Stringtown. And that's the thing. You're just starting to see it escalate all over the prison system. And I will tell you what's going to start happening as you see it escalating and problems at these other facilities. It will trickle down. If something's not done, it will trickle down because what the word in prison travels. I mean, they all know. It doesn't matter whether it's women's prisons, know what's going on, how they can find out so fast. It is unbelievable.
I tell you, Mabel Bassett. They tell me Mabel Bassett is
I'm getting a lot of calls on
Mabel Bassett. But by the way, the Howard McLeod deal was 2 guys got in a fight in the showers. It wasn't on the yard. And I don't know what the reason was, but I understand it's a pretty good fight.
That was in that meeting last week. He said he went to Mabel Bassett. And same thing, he said they didn't have a surveillance. He said it was completely organized. That came out of a state rep's mouth. What more proof do you need?
Right.
Well, when the state representative said that he wasn't patted down, that he could have carried something into a state prison.
Yeah.
Like, that is terrifying. That is horrific to me.
Right.
Yeah. When you've got other state representatives telling you that, I just don't understand why more's not being done. I just don't get it.
Well, I'm gonna have to wrap it up. We're getting pretty close, but here's what I want to say. I do want to say thank you for you guys stepping up.
Thank you.
I do want to tell our listeners that for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to be talking prisons because it is getting crazy and nobody is listening. And we're trying to get the word out and trying to let people know that we're fixing to have a full-blown mess on our hands if we don't get something handled. The group that has been speaking has been hijacked. And so I want you OCP members to get with Jason, start contacting each other, go to that OCP Live or that Facebook, write your comments, let them know how disappointed you are. Get together, let's have a actual meeting. Let's set that up. Let's vote a real board, and let's get back to work. Roll up our sleeves. If we'd get somebody behind us and get the board behind us, I'll guarantee you we could have a lot more. But we've been trying to fight this battle, fighting the department, fighting the politics, fighting the Capitol building, and fighting OCP. We didn't have the support of the president and the board of OCP. So we've been fighting every fight on, every direction. And again, I still think we're being successful. I think the word is getting out there. I think that's why they're mad, is because we are being successful on getting that word. And anybody have a final word they want to give?
I'll just say that I think that the whole thing come down to that all of a sudden we're going up to 2,000 members or views instead of 1,000. But we already know that they're trying to break us by challenging it every time we win in civil service. Every time we win, they shake you, take it to the next level. Then they go to lose again. They take it to the next level. They're trying to break OCP is what they're trying to do. Doing a good job of it.
I want to say, OCP members, let's get a petition started and together. Like I said, all you call me, I'll help. Y'all can give it to me. I'll give it to Bobby, but we need everybody's signature so we can start voting some of these people out and vote a real board in.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you.
You bet. Let's work together and get her done. So.